Hello, great evening to you. Warm welcome to Prime Business with me, Pius Kojo Baka. To our very first story, government has finally kick-started the process to restructure local dollar bonds and cocoa bills totaling almost 18.2 billion cedis. This was after it officially launched what is being described as the second round of the domestic debt exchange program. George Yafe has the rest of the story.
For the local dollar bonds, which is directly being led by the Finance Ministry in terms of the offer, government is seeking to restructure $809 million worth of bonds. Investors that are holding these papers have from last Friday to July 28, 2023 to take a decision whether they want to participate in the offer. However, the Ministry of Finance have already secured the necessary commitment from commercial banks and some institutional investors that hold majority of these papers. But one is still not sure whether the offer could be successful come next Friday. The Ministry of Finance is hoping that the new dollar bonds will mature on 2 separate years. 50% of the payment to be done in 2027 and the rest in 2028. The cocoa bill, which government is seeking to restructure almost 8 billion Ghana cedis, is led by Cowbank in terms of handling the whole process. The offer will close by July 31. Holders of these papers that decide to participate in the offer will have each bond exchanged for 5 new papers with an aggregate principal amount rounded up to 1 Ghana cedi. The Ministry of Finance argues that it needs to carry out this second round of domestic debt restructuring to help reduce the country's debt and unlock additional funding from the International Monetary Fund.
Meanwhile, economist Professor Lord Mensah is urging investors to consider government's offer of restructuring local dollar bonds and cocoa bills, insisting it will help in reprofiling Ghana's debt while it unlocks additional funding from the IMF. According to him, investors are better off to sign up for the deal. Speaking to Joy Business, Professor Mensah urged government to be proactive with information on the restructuring of the local dollar bonds to win the trust of investors.
From the investor's perspective, if you are going to lose your money completely, let's assume you don't accept this and government. But then the only problem with government is that in as much as the investors are going to sacrifice, they may want to see the government behaving like a government that owns, not necessarily a government that, squeeze the people, and in the end, the government will be, flashing, things out and then wasting money here and there. But from where I sit, right, and from the principles of finance, if you are going to lose your money completely through, banks, if the country should declare bankrupt, then you are better off that the country will restructure, and then possibly prolong your debt. So from where I sit, I think it's an offer that we may have to consider as investors, and then possibly sacrifice in a short to medium term for long term, prospects for the country. So I think they have to do with communication as well. And if the communications are not clear, that is when the investor community, seem to lose trust in the government. And when they lose trust, whatever you put on the table, they will take it with a pinch of salt.
All right.
But if you turn up to come out clear with information. If it comes about that you have to pay, certain principal and certain coupons, and you hit to wait, pay it exactly on time. I think you build that trust with them, and whatever you put on the table has to do with negotiation.
All right. Let's do something on energy, because the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Benjamin Boakye, is optimistic the increased crude oil production by Tullow Oil PLC will impact the economy positively. Crude oil production from the Jubilee oil field has finally surpassed 100,000 barrels per day. According to Tullow, this was after its Jubilee Southeast project came on stream. However, Mr. Boakye indicated that the need for government to implement policies and attract investments to sustain the production is key.
It's good news for Ghana because it brings us back to the 2019 production level. Ghana has declined in oil production. We lost about 20 million barrels a year since 2019. And therefore, having additional flows from Jubilee then brings us back to around 170, 175 1,000 barrels of oil a day, which should be good. I mean, particularly in this hard economic time where government revenues are constrained and we're looking for, additional sources of revenue. That could be a game changer for the economic situation that we're in. So, to that extent, it's good news. But again, these are early days. We will have to also look at what has gone into bringing up, extra 30,000 barrels of oil. We thought about $4 billion have already been spent. We need to carefully look at what that means for cash flow for Ghana. If they have to offset that kind of investment, then how much are we looking for on a year-on-year basis? Those are dynamics that we'll have to look into in the coming days. It's been on hold for some time. I mean, they should have completed that phase, I think, 2016, 17, thereabouts. So it's actually delayed in commercializing the entire field and doing that development. So it's been on the drawing board. I mean, there are other fields that could have come at this point to make us much richer and better, which we have failed to actually deliver on. And a typical one will be the deepwater tunnel, which just got approval for development. And other fields like Block 4, which should have been fast-tracked to also bring on additional oil production. Those didn't see any policy actions that could quickly bring that on stream. So, yes, this is good news, but there are other actions, policy actions that are required to ramp up oil production, perhaps to create that cushion that we need at this critical moment.
Now, a former board member of credit ratings agency Moody's, Professor Darrell Duffy, has cast doubts about the African Union establishing a rating agency. In March 2019, the AU Ministers of Finance and Economy professionally or officially adopted a declaration that such an institution was needed. In recent times, President Akufo-Addo has also attacked the rating agencies over their continuous downgrade of Ghana and other African economies. Now, the African continent is said to be losing $75 billion each year due to credit rating bias. However, reacting to the claims, the renowned Professor of Finance, Darrell Duffy, who serves as a senior fellow at the Hoover Institute, said he disagrees there is systemic bias by rating agencies. He has been speaking to Joy News' Blessed Suga at a roundtable discussion at Stanford University in San Francisco.
That's true, but that's somewhat different than the problem of which currency should we use for payments. As long as you have sufficient dollars with which to make the payments, it's the easiest and usually the most stable currency in which to make international payments.
And very finally, ratings agencies are being criticized by the United Nations Development Program of skewing their reports against African or emerging economies. Do you share that concern as well?
I don't share that concern, although I must say that I was on the board of directors of Moody's Corporation for 10 years.
That was cited in the report.
Yeah, so that might suggest that I have a bias, but in fact it also informs me that they don't do that sort of thing.
But how do you explain that to those who share their side of the story? That, well, it's mostly the narrative is cyclical about African economy.
One of the things that I learned about rating agencies is that no one ever complains if you increase their rating to a higher level. But everyone complains if you lower their rating, and everyone suggests that that was unjustified. So, and there are many reasons given for why it's unjustified. In the end, the ratings agencies tend to get it right on average, and of course they make mistakes. But I don't see any systematic bias, and I don't see anything like a plan to undercut the advantages of certain countries by giving them a lower rating.
If you want to publish a clear roadmap or benchmarks that you use for your ratings, would that be far-fetched? Something that you could publicly put out?
No, in fact, their rating agencies do that. They provide research that goes with their ratings, pretty extensive research reports that explain the economic basis for the ratings.
Blessed Surga in that interaction with Darrell Duffy there. And that's it for the bulletin. But just so you know, tomorrow there's a big program coming up, economic transformation. That's our topic for tomorrow. What should the policy direction be in the 2023 mid-year budget? And of course, we've got a great lineup for you. Just want to stay with us here on Joy News and of course on radio as well. We shall be coming your way with the very latest on that. It starts at 1 p.m. and closes at 3 p.m. That's it for the bulletin. I am Pius Kojubaka. Do enjoy the rest of our programs. Prime Sports is next.